to go out on a balcony and just super zoom into it and be like, that's what it looks like at 100x. Dude, I promise you, nobody cares what it looks like at 100x. That's a party trick. That's a gimmick. That's the type of stuff that you're gonna do that's gonna make people go, wow, cool. I think I'm gonna keep using my iPhone. I don't even really have examples of it because I really didn't like the results. It had this very HDR effect. It basically just turned your videos into like HDR hellscape. I've tried it a couple times, but you can kind of see how long my arm is, about like that. That's about the minimum focusing distance of the Pixel 8 Pro's telephoto sensor. Lately, iPhone, it does a bit of oversaturating, but then iPhone also has this just extreme yellow color cast. Yes, it does. I don't even want to hear your opinion. iPhone makes everything yellow. No, it is not color accurate. No, it is not natural. Please be quiet. What's up, guys? Sully's Tech Up here. I'm gonna talk in a more long form style of video today about the Pixel 9 series of phones coming out this fall, maybe even a little bit earlier than we normally see them. And I wanted to talk about Pixel kind of moving away from being a true pro phone. I started today looking up the definition of pro, and I think a lot of people have heard the expression before that it takes 10,000 hours of doing something to become a pro. And I really think the Google Pixel phones, whether you're talking about from a hardware perspective or a software perspective, the phone is really not aiming itself at a pro audience. In fact, I think really what Google is trying to do, kind of two things, maybe they're one and the same, but I think they're slightly different, is Google is trying to become the easiest to use phone on the market. And in the same time, they're trying to become one of the more mainstream phones on the market. Obviously, if you haven't already seen some of the Pixel 9 leaks, I'll show some on the screen, I'll flash some pictures, but they're really starting to use a more iPhone-inspired shape, iPhone-inspired corners. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. It's not that they can't do it or anything, but you know, that's a very, you know, mainstream choice to do that. But let's talk about some of the other things that make this phone easy to use rather than a pro phone. I know you guys probably don't want to look at my mug for the entire video, so throughout the video, I'm just going to be flashing up results that I've managed to get with the Pixel 8 Pro. Maybe some video clips here and there, some photos here and there, some edited copies, some straight out of camera copies. And you guys can just kind of see what the Google Pixel's doing lately. I mean, it's probably gone through a couple updates here and there. I don't imagine that much has changed, but I can at least kind of show you what it's been doing lately. So I'll be having that on the screen while we're going through the video. One of the things that makes somebody a professional to begin with is that they have a skill or a talent that's taken a long time to develop, and it's not easy for other people to do the same things that they can do. This is why plumbers and electricians, for example, can get paid for doing what they do. If anybody could just repair all of their electrical work in their house, there would be no electricians. It's easy. If anybody could just fix their plumbing, their pipes, there would be no plumbers. But because it's difficult, we have professionals. It takes time to learn. What Google has really aimed their phones at doing is becoming like the point and shoot kings. They have, they've rolled out a pro mode on their phones, but it's not, you know, if you've played with it and you've used other phones, you'll agree pretty quickly that it is not one of the more robust pro modes on phones. I think Samsung's got quite a bit more of a featured pro mode. Obviously, Sony has a much more powerful pro mode. In terms of hardware capability and file format, even phones like Vivo, Oppo, and Xiaomi, all of those, they have higher grade raw formats that are coming out. I think the Pixel's only spitting out, again, I know it's a broad range, but somewhere between 10 and 12 bits of color. And 12 is like the upper max. I think it's actually 10. I might look that up and flash it on the screen. But the Samsung, for example, is doing 16 bits, and the Xiaomi phone is doing 14 bits. I mean, Both of those are going to be significantly better if you're actually trying to get what you would describe as a professional result. That's not really the audience that Google is going after anymore. You know, they used to be kind of an enthusiast phone, but when you look at what Google has implemented over the last few years in terms of the voice features is, to me, one of the biggest indicators of what kind of audience they're going after. And there's nothing wrong with it. I gave a Pixel phone to my mom because, again, I think it's one of the easiest phones to use. I think it has one of the best voice assistants on any phone. And I told her, hey, I know you don't know how to use everything. My mom isn't the most tech savvy person, but when you give her a Pixel phone, you can just say, hey, if you don't know what to do, just ask the phone. You don't know how to get to the calculator, just ask it to open the phone. Don't know how to send me a text, just ask the phone. You want to call somebody real quick, don't even bother looking through the contacts, just ask the phone to call them. And you don't even hardly have to interact with the phone in the traditional sense, especially if you're not using anything pro. And that's, again, where Google has spent the majority of their time investing. That's kind of their bread and butter now. Let me give you an example of how Google could have invested into a more professional direction, and instead they went for the more easy direction. It's not to say one's better than the other, or that one is the wrong choice and one is the correct choice. But for example, when they did the audio cleanser, whatever it's called, the audio cleanup feature, where you could just run any sort of video through the Google Photos app, and you can basically clean up the audio and make it voice clarified really easy. That is taking all of the work away from the user. It's super helpful, and for a lot of people, they might find it very useful. But the more pro thing to do, for example, it's not the correct thing, but it's something they could have done, is put multiple microphones on the back of the phone and really give the phone some of the best, like, shotgun microphone capability in the industry. So if you really want to focus on a subject and you actually want to get higher quality audio to begin with without having to clean it up, because I'm of the belief that software can only get you so far. Enhancements and fine tuning can only get you so far. Eventually, if you want a higher quality result, you have to seek higher quality hardware. If you want better audio quality, the best way to do it is going to be to put better microphones on the phone to begin with. Then you work on features like that audio cleanup feature, or whatever that they call it. Another example that they could have done is, they did the video enhancer, and I've played with it a couple times. I don't even really have examples of it because I really didn't like the results. It had this very HDR effect. It basically just turned your videos into like HDR hellscape. And as a pro, I'm not saying I'm a pro, but I tend to go for what some people would describe as a more professional videographer's result when I'm actually doing stuff with my phone other than YouTube videos. It's not that. It's super smartphone looking. It's super HDR looking, which to me, HDR has never looked professional. It crushes everything that used to be a shadow and just makes it bright. It takes down everything that used to be a highlight and just brings it down to where everything in the scene can be visible. And you could probably see that in some of the videos that I'm showing you here. I know the one that I started with, you could clearly see the sky while you could still see my face. It's just like HDR hellscape. Some people love HDR, but I really don't. That's the make it easier path. The same thing as the audio. What would the pro equivalent of that feature had been? It would have been including any kind of log format in the video recording so that your pros can actually have the creative choices, the creative liberties to take the videos and color grade them in the way that they want to. If they want more shadows, they can leave it in there, or they can add more shadows. If they want, blown out highlights because there's a stylistic choice that they're trying to take, they can do that with log. But with Google just making all those decisions for you and saying, hey, everybody loves HDR, we're just going to hand out HDR, all video is now HDR, that to me is not really pro. But again, for the average person that's just a Instagram scroller, yeah, it's like really colorful, it's really vibrant, it's not really realistic at all, but you know, that's what people seem to like right now, but it's not pro. It could be the case that Google's trying to do this we give you professional results avenue. It's not that you have pro tools, because they're not really pro tools. They're make it easy tools. They're let's clean it up and make it look very Instagram worthy tools, especially in terms of what I was just talking about, the video enhancer mode, which is just HDR to the max. I didn't really find that I liked it that much. What I was hoping that it would do, my hopes was that it would just clean up the image a lot. It would denoise, you know, do a lot of processing to get rid of noise in the shadows. Again, I examined and examined and examined, and I just couldn't really find any evidence that that was what they were actually going for. It just felt like ultra HDR. Another example of hardware limitations on the Google Pixel phones, even the Pro version, is they really don't have the 2024 smartphone macro capabilities that's becoming more and more common. If you look at phones like Oppo, Sony, Vivo, and Xiaomi, all of their telephoto sensors can close focus really close to the phone. I mean, you can shoot insects up close, you can shoot the texture on a coin, you can super zoom into the detail on the bark of a tree or something, but you just can't really do anything like that on the Pixel. I think, for me anyways, I've tried it a couple times, but you can kind of see how long my arm is, about like that. That's about the minimum focusing distance of the Pixel 8 Pro's telephoto sensor. So yeah, I know that like Vivo, for example, I don't know, I mean, it's a long lens, right? It's like 3.7 magnification, but it can close focus only, I think it's like 12 inches away or less. With the Pixel, it's like 2.5, 3 feet away, something like that. And that really takes away its ability to do any kind of product photography or just any kind of cool macro stuff without shoving your phone up into something. And a lot of things that you're trying to photograph in a macro context, especially wildlife sort of stuff, frogs or insects or spider stuff you don't want to touch, I don't want to put my phone 2 inches away from it. Hell, especially if it's like a spider or snake or something, I'm not trying to get bit. I'd like to be able to shoot it from a foot away, 2 feet away, without having to shove my phone up and use the ultra wide. It's really lagging behind in that sense. Additionally, when talking about portrait modes, that's, I think, maybe most people's closest idea of what pro photography is on a smartphone. Is like, oh, that looks like you took it on a DSLR. Look at that background blur. Man, we've come a long way in the last, 2 or 3 years, it seems. All of the smartphones now that have really invested into the big sensor trend. Again, here it comes, the same ones you see every time. Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, sometimes Sony, they had the Pro Eye once, but especially recently with the Vivo X100 Ultra is, when you get that long focal length, that telephoto sensor on a big sensor with a big aperture, there is no need whatsoever for a portrait mode. That means a couple things. One, the sensor itself is more capable, period. Like the quality of the image, let's ignore background blur for a second. The quality of the image is just going to be better because you have better optics, you have better sensor, and then software, again, has its limitations. I think you can continue to refine year over year. You'll get marginally better results. But you know what's perfect every time? Hardware background blur, right? The Vivo, even, it seems like 7, 8, 10 feet away, I mean, it's getting just monstrous background blur with its telephoto sensors because big sensor, big lens, you get background blur. There's no need to use the Pro mode. I don't own the Vivo X100 Ultra, but I'm sure if you're watching this video, I'm sure you've already watched a video on the Vivo X100 Ultra. There is no need, zero, there is no need to use portrait mode on that phone whatsoever. It has so much depth of field naturally. I don't know why you would use portrait mode on the phone. It portrait modes everything just by shooting it with the standard automatic mode. You don't even need to do any kind of special enhancement on it. And you know what else is great about that? It's fast. It doesn't require processing, so it's always going to be instant. You always get an accurate preview because it doesn't have to give you some sort of fake software preview. It's the real hardware preview. Previews are accurate, no processing needed, it's instantaneous, and finally, it's perfect because software makes mistakes. We've seen before, right, when someone has their arm like this or they got their arm like that, and then everything's blurred, but the hole in the arm, right, the hole in the arm is not blurred because the portrait mode didn't pick it up or didn't recognize that little space in the arm. You notice little errors in the hair. With hardware, there are no errors because it's real. It's actual background blur. If you want to get into what's, again, described as a professional result, start with the hardware first. Worry about the software second. I don't have that phone, the Vivo X100 Ultra, but if you want to actually see what I'm talking about, if you haven't actually seen a whole lot of photography from the Vivo X100 Ultra yet, the channel that I actually recommend most to see what the camera can actually do in a photography sense is Ben's, I think it's either Ben's Gadget Guides or Ben's Gadget Reviews. I will pop it up right there. But the guy, first of all, he's got excellent quads. He's always in the gym. But second of all, he doesn't admit it. He says he doesn't really have the eye of a photographer, but I completely disagree. He's probably one of the more like true photographers who deep dives phones. I've seen photographers review phones and some of them do really well, but the thing with Ben is he, instead of, you know, shooting the same building in every single photo and comparing like, this is how this phone shot this building, and this is how that phone shot this building, and that's how that phone shot this building. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do these sort of like these static clinical tests. He's not one of the people to go out on a balcony and just super zoom into it and be like, that's what it looks like at 100x. Dude, I promise you, nobody cares what it looks like at 100x. That's a party trick. That's a gimmick. That's the type of stuff that you're gonna do that's gonna make people go, wow, cool. I think I'm gonna keep using my iPhone. It's when you actually create photography that rivals a camera. It looks like a camera. That's that pro photography that we're talking about, pro features. Why the Pixel 9, in my opinion, I don't know that it can be called a pro phone anymore because it doesn't really give you those results. One of the other things I think that's really important for a smartphone to even be called pro is that it can do something exceptionally well that's pro, that is professional. For example, I don't think that the Samsung has a pro camera outside of the 16-bit RAW, because that's just probably the best RAW format in the industry. But what it does do that would warrant the Samsung S24 Ultra being called a pro phone is the DeX feature, all the multitasking features. I think the Samsung is probably the most capable work phone. I know that people are gonna like throw a fit and say, no, it's the iPhone. But like in terms of like file management, having the ability to sign PDFs on the go, the ability to plug into monitors and use your phone as a desktop, the ability to multitask and do several things at the same time. I don't think there's a single phone that's more like actual business application ready than the Samsung is. That's a pro level feature. Then, you know, a lot of phones now, they're obviously deep diving into photography, and so am I, because that's, I think, the thing that I care about the most is the photography. You know, if I can find a way to leave several pounds of camera gear at home and just feel really comfortable just taking a smartphone with me, that would be incredible. Another thing that I want to say is I just don't think Google quite knows what the pro audience is right now. And I think a lot of the smartphone companies, believe it or not, that are not out of China, China seems to have figured it out, but a lot of the companies that are not from China, they don't seem to quite know yet what the pro consumer is. Give you an example. There's a channel called Versus, and wow, this is real spooky. Look at this. I wonder how it's picking up this scene. It's a little dark. Obviously it's daytime, but there's a lot of shade here. But anyways, this channel called Versus, and I hesitate to give them a shout out because I really don't like the way that they do smartphone comparisons, because they don't do anything pro. They take all of these pro level phones, these ultra level phones that have these pro features, the Vivos and the Oppos and the Samsungs and all that stuff, the Sony phones, all that stuff, right? Pro phones, and they make it the most like basic full auto mode shooting that you can imagine. There was even an example where a lot of people were kind of upset, and they actually redid the camera comparison, if I'm not mistaken, because a lot of people complained. And the reason that a lot of people complained was they got the Xiaomi phone, which, you know, the Xiaomi phones, the Vivo phones, I know iPhone does this too, but I think it's more significant that you do it on the Xiaomis and the Vivos, and that's adjust the color profile of how the phone is going to shoot. You know, Xiaomi's got the Leica Authentic. I think the Vivo calls it the Zeiss Natural or Zeiss True Tone or something like that. I can't remember what they call it. But one of these modes, the one that sounds authentic, Zeiss Natural, Leica Authentic on Xiaomi, those have this very like natural, not oversaturated, allow shadows to be shadows, allow highlights to be highlights type of shooting mode, and it's really refreshing. I think the closest thing that you can get to a camera result, like a pro camera result on a phone, is those phones on that color mode, because it removes this smartphoneification of the colors that you see from like iPhones, sometimes Pixels. I think the worst offenders out there are, you know, historically the Samsungs with all the oversaturation. Lately iPhone, it does a bit of oversaturating, but then iPhone also has this just extreme yellow color cast. Yes, it does. I don't even want to hear your opinion. iPhone makes everything yellow. No, it is not color accurate. No, it is not natural. Please be quiet.
Shut up, bitch!
Anyways, so she takes all these pro phones and she puts them all in the vibrant modes, all the saturated modes, and then does the comparison. And I'm like, okay, that's a bit confusing, because in my opinion, the audience for this, like the people that want the pro result, they want the pro camera result, they are probably the least likely people to use that mode, because they want the pro result, right? And the pro result is going to be the result that looks the least like a smartphone photo. When you turn on all these saturated modes and vibrant modes, it's like ultra, it's just the Google video enhancer, everybody gets HDR, you get HDR, you get HDR. Like, it's like the most smartphone looking result, and it's so far away from pro. I don't even know why you would use it. I don't know why it would be on a phone like that calls itself pro. Like, yeah, as an option, but the Leica Authentic, I don't know if it is, don't have the phone, but if that were my phone, like I was working for Xiaomi, I would make the Leica Authentic mode the default camera profile unless someone changes it. You can change it to saturated or change it to vibrant, but out of the box it shoots authentic, because that's what a pro would want, is that more natural result. And a pro, if they want to change the colors or if they want a different result, they will do that in editing. They don't want the phone to decide all of these stylistic choices for them. The best thing a phone can do, or the best thing a camera can do to be pro, is to shoot as naturally and as neutrally as possible. Natural and neutral, to where it's just standard. And then if you want to go from there, if you want a stylized look, you have consider it a clean canvas. You have a blank canvas that hasn't been colored up yet, and you can change it as you want. And that's how you get your pro results. But so anyways, she posted this thing, used all the vibrant modes, and everybody was like, what the hell is the point? Like, why are you using these pro phones and then shooting on the most smartphone, goofy, cartoony ass modes you can find? Why would you even do that? What's the point? And she, or I say she, but I'm assuming it's like a team of people, they redid the comparison and actually used the authentic modes and all that stuff, which I think is probably what they should have done to begin with. But that, to me, kind of, that whole interaction, right, to me kind of symbolizes this I don't understand my audience effect that's happening with all these pro phones. And this Google Pro is like, if you think that's pro, you probably don't understand your audience. Like, the people that are going out of their way, you guys, the people that are going out of their way to watch smartphone videos, you're probably an enthusiast. You either want the best of something, you want the best camera possible, you want the best gaming phone possible. You're not just watching it because you're trying to pass time. You could watch a movie if you want to do that, but you're searching for the best of something. And I think it's a big case of know your audience, because everybody that's tuning in to a smartphone camera comparison, they probably are looking for that more pro result. They don't just want to see what phone can spit out the most oversaturated, unnatural colors. They're actually looking for that smartphone that's given the neutral delivery of colors. The other thing, talking about future-proofing, is if Google is gonna keep supporting these phones for 7 years, that's a long time. The thing that you need to worry about before the software is the hardware. Is the hardware going to remain relevant for 7 years? Is the processor gonna hold up to games and applications and whatever's going on 7 years from now? That's a long time. Think about 7 years ago. That was 2017. 2017, think about phones that were coming out in 2017 and how their hardware is holding up right now. That's kind of what you're looking at in terms of phones that are coming out right now 7 years in the future. How is that hardware going to hold up? The thing about, think back to that Nokia phone, the Nokia like Lumia 1080. I think that's the name, the number. I don't know. They all had numbers. But man, especially because it avoided the whole smartphoneification of photography, I still think today that phone has some of the best looking smartphone photos because it's a very capable sensor, and they didn't try to do a bunch of garbage with the processing, so it's very natural results straight out of camera. But it's just a testament that if you put quality hardware in the phone will remain relevant one way or another for a long time. So I think if you're going to go through all the trouble to make the hardware supported for 7 years, then I think that you just need to go ahead and put the best hardware in that you can. It seems like right now the thing that everybody wants to do is the 1-inch main sensor. Google does not have a 1-inch main sensor. And the thing that a lot of the companies are doing now is close focusing capabilities. Google cannot close focus on the telephoto sensors. And then even in terms of the telephoto sensors themselves, Google's telephoto sensor is significantly smaller than basically all of the other, especially Chinese offerings right now. So in terms of just this complete stack of camera sensors on the smartphone, Google's really lagging behind in terms of sensor size. And I think that will be one of the main things that will show its age. Because I don't know, is this 1-inch sensor thing, is it a short-term trend? Is it here to stay? I think it's here to stay, because all you see is people getting the best camera results on all these 1-inch sensor smartphones. I don't think the 1-inch sensor smartphone is going anywhere. If anything, we're going to just keep pushing it even further. I think I saw a rumor that the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, which is not out right now before you go looking it up, but I saw a rumor that Xiaomi is going to try to push sensor size to the next level on the 15 Ultra. Just a rumor. I'm not trying to report on leaks or anything, and I don't know that it's true or anything, but if that is true, if that turns out to be a fact, that they're gonna go beyond the 1-inch sensor size, they're gonna step it up one level further on the main sensor, that's huge. Because, well, physically, that is huge.
That's what she said.
That's gonna be an enormous sensor, but just think about the capabilities of that thing. I mean, you're talking about bigger than some point and shoot camera sensors on a smartphone. That thing is going to be relevant for a decade. It will. If it truly comes out with a larger than 1-inch camera sensor, that camera will be a powerhouse 10 years from now because of how well that hardware is going to hold up. I think with Google pushing this whole 7 years of updates thing, I think the next place you have to look is how future-proof is the hardware. Sure, yeah, it's going to get updates. How future-proof is the hardware? You can't update that. You can't push out firmware. Well, you can push out some firmware, but you're not going to change physical limitations of the camera. If it can't close focus, like it physically can't do it, no update is going to fix that. If it doesn't have a sensor large enough to do what you want it to do, no update is going to suddenly change that sensor size. That is a limitation you will always have. So I think Google also needs to hop on board with the larger sensor size trend in pro phones. Again, if they're going to use the word pro, go ahead and dive in, do the pro thing, give it the pro sensors, and then we'll talk about pro cameras at that point. So anyways, thanks for tagging along. Just ranted the whole time about what I think a pro phone should be able to do and all that stuff. So appreciate you guys sticking around. Who knows what the Pixel 9 is going to bring? I think it's going to be a lot of ease of use features. I think we're going to see more AI. We're going to see more use of voice features, which again, it's going to continue to make it, I think, the easiest phone to use on the market. Probably the easiest phone to recommend to people who aren't tech savvy in the entire market. But we'll see. Who knows if I'll end up covering the Pixel 9 Pro series. I'm not super keen on, you know, a lot of these choices that they're making lately. I like the more pro features, as you probably were able to deduce from the video. But we'll see. I still think it's a great phone. Obviously, I own one, so I like them quite a bit, and they have been enjoyable phones to use. But I'll catch you guys on the next one.